Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Spill, a movie night podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea. Film Spill, if you already don't know, is a podcast that comes out every week, and we talk about a movie by a female filmmaker every episode. We also discuss women in the entertainment industry in general. We play slumber party type games, spill entertainment gossip, and get to know each other and our guest. This week is my solo episode. I feel like I haven't done a solo episode in a really long time. But don't get me wrong, I love when I have a guest come on because I feel like the conversation really gets going. But this week I am by myself, and today I'm going to be talking about Sofia Coppola's drama/romance film, The Virgin Suicide, 1999. I've been dying to talk about Sofia Coppola just because I'm a fan of Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah, it's just pretty interesting how the Coppolas got into the industry as well. The son of Francis Ford Coppola, Giancarlo Coppola, he has a daughter, Gia Coppola, and I know Gia Coppola is also a film director, which is pretty interesting. She just came out with Mainstream 2020, and then she came out with The Seven Faces of Jane in 2022. So yeah, I love the Coppolas. I don't know if I love the Coppolas just because I love Francis Ford Coppola, but I mean, I love their work. I haven't seen all of their movies, but the movies that I've seen so far, like I've seen Mainstream, I like it. Maybe I'll talk about Gia Coppola soon. I'll talk about the whole Coppola family. But Sofia Coppola, I know that she acted in some of her father films when he was directing The Godfather. She was also in Apocalypse Now. Back to what I was saying, I forget which Coppola. It was either Sofia or Gia who stated that they were bartending at one point of their life. I feel like it was Gia. Was bartending at one point of their lives, and she got into film just abruptly. And yeah, it was just crazy because like she didn't even though it revolved around her family's household, obviously, she just didn't consider it until later down the line in her life. So I have been slacking. I am calling myself out on this, but I have been slacking on Name That Episode, of my new little segment that I wanted to start getting the ball rolling. I have accidentally been forgetting to do it. I'm so used to, like I said, I'm so used to having guests on. So when I'm doing a solo episode, I'm like, oh yeah, like I should be including an episode. But I've been catching up on a whole bunch of film and I guess television shows that I haven't seen in a really long time. Kind of like rewatching some childhood TV shows. And one of them that I stumbled upon was on Paramount Plus, because Paramount Plus has like all of like those Nickelodeon animated shows, and I grew up watching a lot of Nickelodeon, more so than Disney. Disney was like a good portion of my life, but I feel like Nickelodeon was like my whole life. Up until like iCarly, that's when I think I stopped watching Nickelodeon. But I came across As Told by Ginger, and I remember how much I love that show. It's such a great animated show, and I don't know, there was something different about it when I watched it as a kid. It wasn't one of those shows that came on often, so when it would, it was very like, oh, look, As Told by Ginger's on, like I have to watch it. And then when the shows start being out of order, you're not understanding what was happening. Like the last As Told by Ginger episode that I remember is when she's dating that one guy, and they're, I think, at like ski slopes, and that's like all I remember. So I wanted to try to rewatch it. I kind of got there. I was watching the first episode, and it was just like memories just started like flowing, and I just remembered how great it was of just a show to watch. Now, is it something that I would really commit to binging? I don't know, probably not. The only show I've been able to rewatch that I watched as a kid obsessively was Avatar. And Avatar I rewatched, and I also rewatched The Legend of Korra, and both of them are just so good. Like, I love it so much. Like, I can rave about it. And I definitely will plan on rewatching it again sometime in the near future. Right now, I don't have time for that. And I don't typically rewatch stuff. Like, I really don't like rewatching things. I feel like one and done is enough for me. But there's some things that I'm like, oh, I should rewatch this because I forget what happens. And, you know, like Teen Wolf. Like, Teen Wolf just came out with a movie too on Paramount Plus. I don't even think I finished watching this season. It's like, I got bored of it. And also, like, I think I wasn't even around cable anymore when it was still going on. I don't know. But anywho, you know, I can definitely rewatch it. I think it's on Hulu, like all seasons. And I wanted to try to rewatch it before the movie came out. And so I didn't get a chance to. I wasn't hooked on it. Like, I don't know. It just seems so like fake to me. I don't know. But I put on the movie, and like within like 5 minutes, my fiance was like, all right, let's take it off. Like, she was bored. I was bored. I wasn't even paying attention to it. But I don't know. Maybe I should just try to rewatch it. It just feels like corny to me. And I don't mean it in a bad way, because I love it. I love everyone who's cast in it. Like, brings back memories too. Like, that's one of the good ones. Like, oh, Teen Wolf. But no. It didn't catch my attention the same way. But some background on As Told by Ginger. It was created by a woman. Her name is Emily Kapnick. She's an American television creator, writer, and producer. The show ran from 2000 to 2006. Now, I don't know if you guys realize this, but if you search the show on Google, it will pop up like other questions that people have asked about the show. And one of them was why it got canceled. And like, I didn't even think that the show even got canceled. You know, just shows just like stop because they're like, all right, this is going to be the final season. So I checked it out because curiosity. And it said that when they switched the show time, you know, when the air time. So when they switched the air time, that's when the views started to drop. And ultimately that triggered the cancellation and why they decided to cancel the show. So that's probably why I stopped seeing it as much too, because it wasn't on, you know, the regular schedule. There was a regular schedule going on with shows. Like I remember because I used to be obsessed with Eliza Thornberry, and when that show came on, and I had a strict TV schedule of when I was going to watch that show, along with like all my other shows. Like I think that's probably why I'm so obsessed with TV and film. It's because I grew up just like obsessing over it and loving it so much. But yeah, I had a schedule. Like I knew like the Berenstain Bears were going to come on at so-and-so time. Okay, that was like a while back, but that's how my obsession started. Like I was like 7 years old creating my TV schedule, and it like carried on, and it still carries on. I'm gonna admit, like I still have like my weekly shows that come on. Obviously, like they filter out their seasons. So like in the winter time, there's like shows that come back up, spring, summer, like so on and so forth. Like I've already finished binging some shows like The Handmaid's Tale when that came back on. Like I binged it, I'm done. And plus if it comes out every week, like best believe I'm watching it every week. Hell's Kitchen, that's something that I watch on a daily. That finished, and I'm like, damn, like that's like my Fridays that I would watch on like Hulu. But now Next Level Chef is replacing that. So like I'm still watching Gordon Ramsay. Like I don't know about you guys, but I love watching Gordon Ramsay and his shows. Like they're so good. It doesn't matter what it is. Like it really doesn't. Like I love them all. That is this week's Name That Episode shout out. I wanted to take some time as well to let you guys know that my short film, Tell You Soon, is now in a fundraising mode. We are trying to raise funds for production. Any contribution is much appreciated. This is going to be my directorial debut film, so I'm super excited about it. I'm putting so much love into this project, and you know, watching these films and you know, having all of this inspiration has really changed my mindset of how I want to accomplish this film. I have so many ideas brewing, and I can't wait for you guys to see the final product. But it should be released in September of 2023. But yeah, we need your help to do this. We need your help to spread the word about diversity and inclusivity, and that is what this film is about. Is I'm going to align my values of including a queer relationship as well as them being people of color in the storyline. I really want to have I love vintage, so I really wanted to incorporate that to the film. So I'm going to incorporate some of my vintage style. And yeah, there's just so much to come, and I will definitely link that to the show notes for you guys to check out. You can check us out on Instagram at Tell You Soon Film. There's going to be more updates. We're going to share more behind the scenes of the film, all of that good stuff. I'm preparing a lot of cool stuff for you guys. Also, we have also launched our Patreon. Our Patreon is live. If you guys want to join our Patreon, there are 3 tiers, and you can check those out on our link. I've also linked that in the show notes, so either on Instagram or just on these show notes here, wherever you listen to your podcast. With the Patreon, we really wanted to have this be another source for you guys to either be a part of our community, also give us movie recs, or us be able to talk about that through our Discord page. I also want us to be able to give back the resources that we know that helped us in our beginning stages when we were starting out in film, whether you've already been in film for years now or you're just starting out. Like, these resources that we're giving you are meant to help you whenever you need them, because the market right now for job searching is really rough. So we want to be able to make sure that we're helping everyone out in the community and to make sure that we're giving back. And everyone needs a helping hand when it comes to job searching and networking and meeting other people in the industry. So we want to provide that for you. So take a look whenever you get the opportunity. Check out our Patreon page. But let's get into this week's movie. So like I stated before, we're going to be talking about The Virgin Suicides, 1999. This film I had not seen before prior. This was my first time watching it. And let me tell you, it was such a struggle. I don't know why I struggled watching this film. You really have to pay attention to this film when you're watching it, because there's just like missing pieces, I guess you could say. And you would probably better understand that if you watch the film. But I had to like rewatch it like 4 times. Like the beginning, I had to just keep rewatching it to like make sure that I understood the story, that I was understanding where it was coming from. And then I watched the end. Then I finally got to the end. And I'm like, okay. But now I feel like I have to rewatch it again. So it was a lot of like, I don't know. There is a trigger warning. In this discussion, we will have talk about suicide, because this is involved in the movie. So if this is something that you're not comfortable with, it's okay. You can stop this recording right now and come back next week for another new Film Spill episode. The Virgin Suicides is available to watch for free on Pluto TV or watch it on Paramount Plus. I watched it on Paramount Plus, so if you have a subscription, go for it, and then that way you can watch SO by Ginger too. This discussion will contain spoilers for the film, so if you haven't already seen it, go watch and come back afterwards to hear my thoughts. All right, so let me tell you what this film is about. So this is a story about 5 young sisters who live under the strict watch of their parents, becoming increasingly isolated from any community outside of their home. As a result of this extreme seclusion, all the sisters experience severe depression that increasingly gets worse. Their tragic journey is told from the perspective of a group of young boys. The director and writer for this film is Sofia Coppola. She is the daughter of Eleanor and Francis Ford Coppola. She started acting as a baby in her father's renowned film, The Godfather, 1972. She received dominantly negative reviews for her acting in The Godfather Part 3. When asked about how these onslaught of negative reviews affected her, she told The Independent Ireland, "Because I didn't want to be an actress. It didn't traumatize me. And that it hurt me to be attacked by the press, but the scars were not permanent. It was painful, but it wasn't devastating." She started directing with her first feature film being this film, The Virgin Suicides, 1999. Her second feature film was Lost in Translation, 2003, writing it after coming back from promoting The Virgin Suicides. And she had never written before prior to The Virgin Suicide. Like, she learned how to write a script for The Virgin Suicide. So that goes to show anyone can do it. Coppola won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay for The Lost of Translation at the 76th Academy Awards. Many of Coppola's films are noted for a representation of femininity. About this, she said to The Guardian, quote, "I just feel like I have a feminine point of view, and I'm happy to put that out there. We certainly have enough masculine ones. I never felt like I had to fit into the majority view. Maybe growing up with so many strong men around me meant I felt, I don't know, closely connected to being feminine. I mean, in my first movie, I felt like making something for teenage girls. I looked at the movies they've made for the teenage girls and thought, why can't they have beautiful photography? Why shouldn't we treat the audience with respect? There was something I missed when I was that age. I wish the movies weren't so condescending. So I guess I've always just made the films that I've wanted to see." So I love that. Because as a filmmaker myself, like, I want to make movies that I want to see. I want to portray women in respective view and not us feeling like we're belittled or that, you know, men overpower us and that we don't have a voice. And in a lot of early films, especially this was made in 1999, around this time we were seeing a lot of films that just made us feel like that we were less than what we are. And you know, we needed more of this. We needed more of this momentum to change the perspective, because at a young age, when you're watching these sort of movies and how they stereotype women in the media, we start believing these perspectives. And you know, once we get older and we start, you know, viewing the world as it is, then that's when, okay, we kind of snap out of it. But not all of us do. Like, some of us still have that, like, I don't know, stereotype view of certain things. This film was based on the novel of the same name by Jeffrey Eugenides. Much of the movie was shot in Toronto. The film was shot in 1 month in 1998 in the summer. Coppola told Vogue, quote, "We shot on film and we're always running out because we do these long shots of the girls laying around their rooms. It wasn't until they got really bored that these little details would start to come out. So I'd shoot these long shots of them lying around the room and the producers would yell about how we didn't get enough film stock." When Coppola was asked by Vogue why she decided to adapt the book, she answered, quote, "It had such a specific visual sense of time and place. I thought suburbia was so exotic because I didn't grow up there. There was always a sort of romantic quality about American suburbia that was so clear in my head. Once I figured out the puzzle of adapting it, I had a look in my mind of how it should feel when reading it, of that hazy, backlit style of 70s Playboy photography." Oh, and I love that. Like, I love that look, the 70s look. I discussed The Love Witch about a month ago, and that had a similar vibe that I'm, like, trying to go for Tell You Soon. And I've been seeing this, like, pattern going along with these directors recently, like The Diary of a Teenage Girl, same thing, 70s vibe. Like, I feel like it doesn't matter what era, like, people are still contributing that in their films because it looks so grainy and so, like, neat. Like, just the aesthetic look is just like chef's kiss. So nice. This had some aspects of, like, diary, right? We're seeing, like, the diary, like, writing, especially in the opening titles. We see the flashbacks are, like, these, like, cool montages. I really like that. Like, one of my favorite shots from the movie was where Kirsten Dunst is, like, she has a sparkler in her hand and you just see kind of the outline of her shadow, but you see the clouds. Like, that's so nice. I actually kind of want to recreate that shot because I loved it so much. It reminded me of Nomadland, like, when she's just, like, walking around with the sparkler. Like, all of these movies connect in one way or the other, and it's just amazing me by watching these, like, how much they relate to one another, or, like, little pieces of them interact. Each of them have, like, these similar pieces that they take and incorporate them in their own way in their films. Not that they're using all these films as reference, but that some sort of way all these films that are being created by women kind of interact with each other. It's kind of cool, kind of fascinating. And if you sticked around with me this whole time and been watching the films that I've been recommending to you guys, you will see that and you understand what I'm talking about. You're catching on. She wrote the script originally, even though she didn't have the rights to it, but that production didn't end up happening, so after the original rights to the novel was gone, Coppola had the rights to make it. The first actors who were cast were Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon, played by James Wood and Kathleen Turner. Coppola described the production as difficult, saying to The Guardian, "The whole thing was a challenge, though, and not just because of the financing fell apart the week before the shoot. It was just a low-budget production, and creating a period film with limited resources is tough." It's so true. That's why crowdfunding plays a huge factor in just starting up your film, because you gotta pay your people, you gotta pay your crew, you gotta pay locations, you gotta pay for things to happen, and it costs a lot more money than people think to make a film. She discusses in the same interview above that the sexism she has faced in the industry. When she started out in filmmaking, people would ask her if her father or her husband at the time, director Spike Jonze, helped her with acclaimed parts of her film. About this, she said, "And that was really insulting. Obviously, you wouldn't say that to a male director." She prefers to work in the independent film arena, as she says she believes there are less gender disparities than in big budget movies. Oh, it's so true. She's really feeling it. And when people see the last name Coppola, like, they just automatically assume. Francis Ford didn't make her script. He didn't tell her to start writing. Like, he didn't force her to do it. She did it. She wanted to do it. And she's making a name for herself, and that should be respected. And it's so true. Like, we tell you that we have stereotypes surrounding women that just aren't valid anymore. Like, we just need to be respected. And some of the questions that are asked to us, we're just like, what? Like, why are you asking me this? And I do love the independent film arena because of the fact that I feel like you can have more of a voice. And what is big budget film anyways? Like, you can create great work and still have, maybe it's not noticed as much, and that's where there's the disadvantage, but that's where social media comes into play, right? And like, we have like the internet, like using that to an advantage. Now we're in a different time where like we can really self-promote ourselves, and we don't need to broadcast our films in big theaters. Like, we can do it ourselves as independent filmmakers. That's going to be the next generation. Like, we don't need theaters. Theaters are going to go out of business. Just kidding. I'm not going to say that because I love going to like $5 movie Tuesdays. But I'm just throwing out the vibe that we don't need to rely on other people or other things for us to put our names out there and for us to make a name out of ourselves. Let's get into some production design. The production designer was Jasna Stefanik, also known for Thailand 2005 and Cube 1997. It is a 1970s fashion. Their sense of restriction can be seen in their outfits as well as their daily wear in their school uniforms. Prom dresses had added coverage to hide signs of female sexuality. Lux's rebellion by exercising her sexuality is expressed in her clothing. Cinematography was done by Edward Lachman, also known for Carol 2015 and Far From Heaven 2002. A lot of the shots gave some dreamy energy as they were fantasized by the boys. The shots of color depict emotional tone and the energy as it develops and changes throughout the film. There is many feminine light shades and colors. Music and sound design. Air composed the score. They are a French music duo from Versailles. Have often collaborated with Sofia Coppola. A track on Maria Antoinette 2006 helped put together the soundtrack to Lost in Translation 2003. It is critically acclaimed. Some outlets have ranked it as one of the best scores of all time. Nominated for Best Soundtrack at 2001 Brit Awards. Very airy electronic music, dreamy just like the mystery around the sister songs. Combine the hope of freedom and adolescence and pretty light sounds with tragedy. In the beginning of the movie, you hear that electric, flowy air, as if you're like on a mission. Sofia Coppola found an album by Air and detailed to Esquire magazine, quote, "I had never heard of them and just bought it randomly. I listened to it over and over while working on the script and thought it would be good for the soundtrack." The editing was done by Melissa Kent and James Lyon. Melissa Kent worked on editing on the film My Family 1995. Executive produced by Francis Ford Coppola, led to her collaborating with him on some other projects. And James Lyon, also known for editing Velvet Goldmine in 1998. He did unfortunately pass away in April 2007. So we have James Wood as Mr. Ronald Lisbon and Kathleen Turner as Mrs. Sarah Lisbon. Portrays the strict religious parents of the Lisbon family, increasingly isolates and restricts their daughters. Mr. Lisbon is more awkward, and Mrs. Lisbon is more frantic in sheltering the girls from the world and their sexuality. Kirsten Dunst as Lux Lisbon. She rebels against her parents by expressing her sexuality by having intercourse with Tripp and other men. Is a crucial character in the film. Her breaking of the rules by staying out after homecoming leads to all the sisters being confined to the house. Began her and Coppola's relationship of collaborations. She also was in Maria Antoinette 2006 and The Beguiled in 2017. Coppola said to Vogue about Dunst's casting, "What I love about her is that she looks like this all-American blonde cheerleader that has this depth behind her eyes that contrasts her look. I just clicked right away with her. She just totally gets me and got how I wanted to do it. Back then she was just a kid, but it was just the beginning of our friendship." Let's get into Cecilia Lisbon. So that is played by Hannah R. Hall. And first of the girls to commit suicide, which results in increased supervision of the daughters. Has one of the most memorable quotes from the film. And this is like right in the beginning. the doctor asked her at the hospital about why she cut her wrist. And this is what's quoted. Doctor, what are you doing here, honey? You're not even old enough to know how bad life gets. Cecilia, obviously, doctor, you've never been a 13-year-old girl. And that there sets the tone for the movie. I thought that this movie was just gonna end up surrounding the aftermath of Cecilia's death when she tries to commit suicide for the second time. So she tries twice to commit suicide and finally succeeds the second time after falling from her bedroom onto a fence that's right in front of the house. Now, the parents at this point, before she tries it the second time, have tried to loosen their restrictness and allow them to have boys come over the house. And I don't know where this misreads. I've never read the book, and I'm really intrigued to read the book because I feel like the book always gives more detail. But, you know, she comes to some sort of like term when they're having this like gathering with the men that like maybe she's like, all right, this is fake and I don't want to be a part of this. And that's why she tries again where she's like, I don't want to be here. That also can play into depression, like that nothing was making her happy, nothing that she was surrounding herself was making her happy. And that's why she also could have ultimately decided that to be her faith. And I thought that was going to be, it was called the Virgin Suicides because you see her drop the Virgin Mary card in the beginning of the movie. And, you know, she's young, she's 13 years of age, and she just committed suicide. So, you know, the movie plays out and it comes to the boys running so the boys in this movie, they do play a big part. They're kind of like these boys who are eavesdropping on their neighbors, and their neighbors end up being women that they're obsessed with. And there's mystery going around. They don't know what's really going on with them. There's just like a whole lot of unspokenness, and you think that things are okay. And then they go over their house and they end up seeing two more sisters that have committed suicide. And then that aftermath then results in the last sister, which is Lux, who commits suicide. And then the parents are left with no children at the end of that. So their 5 daughters have then committed suicide. And like the ending really got to me. So like the parents are left alone. They don't have any more of their daughters around, and they end up selling their house. And the tree that the daughters are trying to save that has the imprint of one of the sisters' hands, the Cecilia, who passed away in the very beginning, they don't want it to be cut down. They're around the tree trying to protect it. And then at the end of the movie, you see that they finally tore it down, and the parents finally move, and it's just left there. And I feel like that house was probably left with so much tragedy. I'm like thinking about the ghosts that they're probably haunting it right now. But that's just my like paranormal activity brain, just like thinking like, oh, isn't there ghosts gonna be living at that house? But yeah, it's very sad how it ends. Like I said, I wasn't expecting it to end that way. And now I understand why it's called the Virgin Suicides. Because, you know, Lux isn't a virgin at the end of it, but, you know, it's just the suicides of all the sisters. And let's get into the plot. It follows the journey of the Lisbon sisters and how increased isolation leads to their tragic end. The film is told from the perspective of a group of neighbor boys the sisters have overprotective parents whose resulting strict home environment leads to the suicide of their youngest daughter, Cecilia. After this, the girls are under an increased amount of watch under their parents, and the distances the sisters even more from their community. Tripp convinces Mr. Lisbon to allow the sisters to go to the homecoming dance under their father's supervision. However, during the night, Lux and Tripp have intercourse on the football field, and Lux falls asleep. She has to go home alone once she wakes up, which makes her parents even more upset. Because of the situation, the sisters are pushed even more to their isolation as their parents take them out of school and keep them confined only to their own house. Under this punishment, Lux defies her parents by having sexual intercourse with various random men. As months pass by, the sisters start sending notes for the neighbor boys who have been observing them all this time in fascination. They finally send a note asking the boys to come over. They do, thinking that they will help the sisters escape. Instead, they find that all the sisters are dead, having committed suicide by various methods. The parents of the Lisbon sisters move out of their home, and their community goes as if nothing has happened. The boys have grown up and still wonder about the Lisbon sisters, who they could never figure out. Let's talk about some of the themes. One theme is that women's stories being often told through the fantasies men have of them, rather than being told in truth by women themselves. The boys are fantasized with the ideas of these girls and romanticize them as girls, as things to be saved, but they don't know the true feelings and the lives of these girls. I really highly recommend this film. This film was a great watch, even though it took me like 4 times to watch it, but I really wanted to understand what was going on here. It has some great themes, great dialogue, memorable moments, and the shot, great. I love the shots, and like I love good reference shots. And when it comes to just like those montage scenes, when you watch those montage scenes, you'll understand what I mean. This has been everything for this episode. Thank you guys again for listening. This has been Film Spill, a movie night podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. All are at Film Spill Pod. Tell a friend about the podcast if you like, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and that will help other people find Film Spill too. Special thanks to Onyx Films for promoting us. You can check out Onyx's other projects at onyx-film. And don't forget, check out our Patreon as well as Tell You Soon on GoFundMe. And until next time, don't cry over a spilled film.